Okay, so I want you to picture something for me. You can, close your eyes if you're in a safe place to do so.
I'm with you.
You are asleep. You've drifted down into that really heavy, vivid layer of REM sleep where things feel incredibly real, but also just totally off kilter.
The weird dream state.
Exactly. And in this dream, you are staring at a washing machine.
Okay. A washing machine.
Yeah, but it's not one of the sleek, digital silent ones we have today. It's one of those old school top-loading agitator types, maybe from the 50s or something.
Right. I can picture it. The kind that really shakes the whole house.
That's the one. It's chugging along, vibrating across this linoleum floor, making that rhythmic, mechanical thump, thump, thump noise. But then you step a little closer and you realize something is really, really wrong.
It's off balance. The dreaded off balance load.
Oh, much worse. It's leaking water everywhere. The floor is flooding, the water's rising up around your ankles, and here's where it gets truly weird. In that fuzzy, undeniable logic of the dream world, with absolute certainty that this washing machine is not an appliance.
It's not.
No, it is in fact a boat, a leaky wooden boat from the 19th century. And you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and your life depends on this Maytag keeping you afloat.
Wow. Okay, that sounds like a scene from a surrealist painting. Dolly Does Laundry Day. Or just a very, very confusing Tuesday night anxiety dream.
It sounds like absolute nonsense, right? Just,
Yeah.
random neurons firing. But what if I told you that that weird, leaky washing machine was actually a highly sophisticated encoded message from your own subconscious?
A message.
Yeah, a message designed specifically to stop you from freaking out about your own mortality.
That is quite the leap from laundry appliances to existential dread and the nature of the eternal soul.
It is the leap we're taking today. Welcome back to the deep dive. I've got my oversized mug of tea here. It's chamomile. I'm trying to stay calm. The lights are dimmed, and I am ready to get a little spooky. Because today we are looking at a session that feels like a ghost story, a quantum physics lecture, and a therapy session all rolled into one.
It really does run the entire gamut of human experience. We are digging into session 87 of the early sessions, book 3 of the Seth material.
The date of record is September 14th, 1964.
A Monday night.
A chilly Monday night in Elmira, New York. And before we get into the really heavy stuff, the mental cubes, the enzymes of thought, and the past lives, we need to establish our ground rules.
A housekeeping.
Right. This deep dive is based entirely on the Seth material, and we have to credit the publisher, New Awareness Network.
And as always, we should mention that this podcast is distributed free of charge on all major platforms, and it's for educational purposes.
Exactly. So our mission today is pretty specific. We are just recounting a spooky story for the sake of, getting shivers. We are going to explore 2 massive reality-bending ideas that Seth lays out in this session. First, we're going to look at the mechanics of how consciousness actually constructs physical reality using a structure he calls mental enclosures.
Which is a concept that, I have to say, completely broke my brain the first time I read it. It is dense.
It really is. It took me a few reads. And second, we're going to look at how our dreams act as a kind of pressure valve, processing trauma from past lives to reassure our egos in the present.
It's that connection that really gets me. The session starts with this very technical, almost dry explanation of how thoughts turn into things. And then it just pivots to this deeply personal, visceral story about Jane Roberts, the woman who channeled Seth thinking she was predicting her own death.
It's such a classic Seth structure, isn't it? He gives you the theory, the physics of the soul, if you will, and then he applies it to a very immediate emotional problem Jane was having. It grounds the metaphysics in real human fear.
It really does.
So let's not beat around the bush. Let's unpack the physics first. Seth introduces this concept of mental enclosures. Now, when I hear enclosure, I think of a fence or a cage, maybe an animal pen at a zoo. But that's not quite what we are talking about here, is it?
Not quite, no. That implies being trapped. Seth describes it as a beneficial psychic device. And to really wrap your head around it, you have to visualize a shape. He uses the specific analogy of a cube.
A cube. Okay, so I'm picturing a box. Is it floating in space? What are we talking about here?
Imagine a cube, yeah. But this isn't a trap or a prison. Think of it more like a processing station, a transformer. Seth explains that this enclosure is a temporary barrier where the inner self collects raw psychic energy.
Okay, like a pressure chamber.
A pressure chamber is a perfect analogy.
Well,
or a combustion engine. If you want an explosion to drive a piston, you have to contain the explosion, right?
If you just light a match in an open field, it just fizzles out. But if you light it in a cylinder...
Exactly. You get work. you get movement.
Hmm.
Seth is saying that for consciousness to create matter, it needs a similar mechanism. Raw energy is flowing around everywhere in the universe,
Right.
and this cube, this mental enclosure, it catches some of it.
Okay.
But the structure is specific. Seth says, and this is really crucial, that the enclosure represents a setting up of barriers on all sides but one.
Okay, so it's a box with an open back or an open top, like a mail slot.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
One side is open to the inner self, to the source.
Yeah.
That allows that raw, creative energy to pour in, but the front gate, the side facing our physical reality, is temporarily closed. It's barred.
It's holding the door shut. But why? If the goal is to create reality, why not just let the energy flow right through like a river? Why the bottleneck?
Because you need pressure.
Hmm.
You need a pause. If
Wow.
the energy just flowed through, it would remain energy. It wouldn't have the density or the structure to become matter.
Ah.
Seth talks about this pause or pulsation as being absolutely critical for the creation of the physical world. The energy has to be held, pressurized, and transformed.
It's like building a dam. I get it. If you just let the river run, it's just water. But if you build a dam, you create potential energy, you create power. And in this case, the power being generated is physical matter itself.
Precisely. And this is where Seth drops a term that sounds like it belongs in a biology textbook or, frankly, a sci-fi novel. He talks about mental enzymes.
Yes, mental enzymes. I highlighted that like 3 times in the notes. It sounds so bizarre. Like, my thoughts have a digestive system. Are we talking about probiotics for the soul?
In a very literal way, they do have a digestive system.
Yeah.
Seth says, and I'm going to quote a little bit here, mental enzymes help transform the energy into incipient patterns from which matter, physical matter, can result. So inside this mental cube, while the front door is locked, this raw psychic energy is being broken down, metabolized, and structured by these mental enzymes.
It's being turned from potential into a pattern.
Exactly. It's being turned into a blueprint.
It's cooking. The ingredients go in, the box closes, the heat goes up, those are the enzymes, and it turns into a cake before you open the oven door.
That's the idea. And all of this happens during that pause. The energy is stuck in the waiting room, getting dressed up as matter before the front door opens.
And when the door opens, what happens then?
The front gate represents the subconscious release. When the pressure is right, when the transformation is complete, the gate opens and boom. That transformed energy bursts out into the physical world as an object or an event or a physical body.
So without the box, without the pause, we wouldn't have physical reality. We just have energy soup.
We'd have unstructured flowing energy. The pause gives it duration. It gives it form. It creates the illusion of a solid object existing in time.
This leads to a question about scale, though, because when we talk about creating reality, we usually think of manifesting. You know, I'm visualizing a parking spot, so I get a parking spot. But Seth seems to be talking about something way more fundamental. Is this how my liver cells are made?
It's much bigger and much smaller than just parking spots. This isn't just human psychology here. He says this is the basis of all consciousness.
Even the small stuff.
The smallest. Seth says, and this is another quote, "Such enclosures are the innermost basis of any consciousness. They could be said to represent the inner psychic form even of the most minute cell." So an atom, a molecule, a cell, they're all doing this. They're all creating little mental enclosures, pulling in energy, pausing, using mental enzymes, and pulsing into existence.
That is wild. It implies that the universe isn't continuous. It's blinking. It's pulsating like a strobe light.
Seth explicitly calls it a pulsation. Atoms and molecules appear and disappear imperceptibly. They give the illusion of continuity, just like a film strip. A movie looks like smooth motion, but it's actually just, 24 still frames per second. Reality, according to Seth, is a rapid-fire process of creation, destruction, and recreation happening inside these mental enclosures.
It makes everything feel very alive and very intentional. It's not just dead matter floating around in a void. Every piece of it, every electron is actively working to be there. It's an active process. It's work.
And that active process requires intelligence. You can't run a complex factory process like that, even a microscopic one, without knowing what you're doing.
Which brings us to the second major concept in this section. If an atom is building its own reality using mental enzymes, it has to know how. It can't just be random luck.
Exactly. And that's where Seth introduces the term capsule comprehension.
Capsule comprehension. Okay, it sounds like a pharmaceutical product. Take one capsule comprehension for a headache and sudden enlightenment.
It does sound like that, but it's actually a definition of the innate understanding that energy has of itself. Seth defines it as the knowledge inherent in energy.
Wait. So energy isn't just fuel. Energy understands itself.
Yes. In our modern scientific view, we tend to separate stuff from information. We have matter, the stuff, and then we have the laws of physics, the information that tell matter what to do. Seth is saying they are the same thing. Energy is information. He says, the comprehension of itself and its workings, being an attribute and everywhere a part of energy, cannot be separated.
So you can't have energy without the knowing. They are packaged together. They're inseparable.
Correct. There is no such thing as dumb energy. Every unit of consciousness, no matter how small, contains a condensed capsule of total understanding.
That's the mind-blown moment for me. I'm looking at my coffee cup right now. I usually think of it as dead ceramic, inert. But according to this, every atom in the ceramic handle knows exactly what it is, knows how to hold its shape, knows how to exist. It's not just sitting there, it's performing being a cup.
And it has the comprehension to do so.
Yeah.
It contains the blueprint of reality within it. And Seth emphasizes that this comprehension isn't diluted just because the particle is small. He compares it to creative ability and a personality. It's distributed throughout the whole. He says this comprehension is not broken up and distributed piecemeal, but completely contained within as if it were condensed.
It's like a hologram. That's the classic analogy, right? You cut a hologram in half and you don't get half the picture. You get
the whole picture, just a little fuzzier. Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. Every part contains the whole. So what we have is this incredible picture of the universe. Infinite mental enclosures, pulsating on and off, driven by an intelligent energy that knows exactly what it's doing, constructing reality moment by moment.
It's beautiful. And it's very orderly. It suggests a universe that is competent.
Competent is a great word for it, yes.
Which is a stark contrast to what we need to talk about next. Because while the atoms of the universe are happily pulsing away in their competent mental enclosures, Jane Roberts, the woman speaking for Seth, was having a terrible week. She was not feeling competent. She was feeling terrified.
She really was. And this is where the tone of the session shifts dramatically. We go from the sterile laboratory of the cosmos to the messy, dark bedroom of human fear.
So let's set the scene. It's September 1964. Seth is still relatively new to them. They're still figuring this all out. And Jane has been having these really disturbing dreams. And not just I showed up to school naked dreams. We're talking specific, visceral, death-related dreams.
Right. Let's break them down, because the details really matter here. There were 3 key dreams mentioned in the session notes. The first one happened on September 7th.
In this dream, Jane is aware of an old woman. She sees her clearly. The woman is about 83 or 85 years old. She's a medium, a psychic, and she's dying.
But notice the texture of the dream. She's not just dying in a hospital bed. She's working. She's active right up until the end. And the transition from life to death is portrayed as smooth. Jane actually noted that she envied this old woman in the dream.
Which is a really weird emotion to have in a death dream. I envy the dying woman. That's usually a red flag. But then the dream shifts. Jane is in an old person's home, and suddenly the perspective flips. She feels like she is the old woman. She is merged with this dying medium.
Keep that in mind. That identity blur is crucial for the explanation later. Then, 2 days later, on September 9th, she has another dream. She's talking to 2 sick men.
And this is the one that really freaked her out later. She tells these men, don't worry, the material says I have cancer too.
Meaning the Seth material.
Right. She's telling them, hey, Seth says I've got cancer, so we're in the same boat. And in the dream, she's cheerful about it. She's reassuring them. But when she woke up...
Oh, when she woke up, the panic set in. You have to remember, Jane Roberts wasn't a believer in the traditional sense, especially this early on. It was 1964. She was a poet, a writer, a skeptic. She was constantly worried that this whole Seth thing was, well, dangerous, or that her subconscious was trying to warn her of something terrible.
She thought it was precognitive. She thought, oh my God, I'm predicting my own death. I'm going to get cancer.
It's a completely natural fear.
Yeah.
If you dream you have a fatal disease, you don't usually wake up thinking, what a lovely metaphor. You check your lymph nodes. You worry. You start bargaining with the universe.
Exactly. And on top of that, she was having some actual physical symptoms in real life. She was having trouble with her monthly periods. She was in pain. So her brain is connecting dots. Physical pain, plus dream about cancer, impending doom.
That is the tension hanging in the room when session 87 starts. Jane is pacing. Her eyes are dark. Her voice is probably a bit tight. She's anxious. And Seth. Well, Seth steps in with what I think is one of the most fascinating plot twists in the early sessions.
It really is a twist. I honestly didn't see it coming when I read it for the first time. Seth basically looks at these dreams and says, you've got the timeline wrong.
He says these weren't predictions of the future. They were memories of the past.
This is where the concept of reincarnation enters the chat, but in a very practical, problem-solving way. Seth reveals that the old woman in the dream, the medium in Boston who died of cancer, was Jane. Or rather, a past personality of Jane's.
Specifically, a life in Boston pre-Civil War. Seth explains that Jane, or the entity Rupert, as he calls her, was a medium in that life, did die of cancer in her early 80s, and worked right up until the end.
So the dream wasn't saying you will die of cancer, it was saying you did die of cancer.
And that distinction changes absolutely everything. Seth explains the mechanism here, and it ties right back to those mental enclosures and the way consciousness works. Jane was having physical fear in the present, the period issues, the pain. That fear acted as a trigger.
Like a search query in a database.
Yeah.
Siri, show me times I felt physical pain and existential dread.
Exactly. Her subconscious felt the fear of illness. To handle that fear, it went into the archives, the deep archives of her entity's history, and pulled up a file that matched the emotional tag. Fear of cancer. Oh, we have a file on that.
But why? Why would the subconscious remind you of a painful death to make you feel better? That seems so counterintuitive. Hey, you're worried about cramps. Remember that time you died of a tumor? Thanks, brain. That doesn't seem helpful.
It does seem strange to the conscious ego, but look at it from the perspective of the eternal self. Seth's logic is fascinating here. The message wasn't the death. The message was the survival.
Oh, okay.
The dream was showing her, look, you had cancer, you died, and here you are alive again, dreaming about it. You survived death. You are eternal.
That is actually really comforting in a very twisted way. It's like showing someone a scar to prove the wound healed.
It's profound reassurance. Seth says the purpose was to prove the continuity of the soul. The subconscious was saying, this physical vessel might break, but you don't.
And that explains why she was cheerful in the second dream. She was telling the sick men, don't worry, I have cancer too, implying, and look at me, I'm fine now. It's not the end.
Precisely. The conscious ego panicked because it only understands one timeline, birth to death. It thinks death is the cliff edge. But the inner self, the one operating the mental enclosures, knows the bigger picture. It knows death is just a transition, a front gate opening, if you will.
I love that. It recontextualizes the whole nightmare. It transforms it from a threat into a pep talk, but we still have one loose thread to pull, a very wet, very soapy thread.
The washing machine.
The washing machine. This is the third dream element, and honestly, it's my favorite because it's just so absurd. It's the kind of dream logic that makes you wake up laughing.
It is delightful. Absolutely.
So in the same dream sequence, Jane sees her friend, D Masters. D is a gallery administrator in real life. But in the dream, D is standing over an agitator-type washing machine. Jane starts fussing with the machine, and water leaks out onto the floor.
It sounds like a mundane anxiety dream about household appliances. Did I leave the water running? Is the warranty expired on the Maytag?
Great. But Seth goes full Sherlock Holmes on this washing machine. He treats it like a crime scene clue.
He does. He calls it an excellent example of subconscious knowledge distortion. He explains that the washing machine was a visual pun, a distortion of a ship.
A ship. From washing machine to ship, that feels like a stretch. How do we get from A to B on that one?
Well, think about the sensory details. A tub filled with water, churning, agitating, rocking back and forth.
Okay, I can see tub equals boat and agitating equals stormy seas. I'm starting to get it.
Seth explains that in that same past life in Boston, Jane, as the medium, and Rob, her husband, who Seth calls Joseph, had crossed the Atlantic to get to Boston.
Ah, so they were immigrants in that life.
Yes. And apparently on that voyage, the ship had a leak.
The water on the floor?
Water on the floor. The subconscious took the memory of a leaky wooden ship crossing the Atlantic and translated it into the modern visual vocabulary of a leaky washing machine.
That is hilarious. It's like the Dreams graphics card couldn't render a 19th century schooner, so it just pasted in a Maytag because that was the closest asset it had on file.
That is a surprisingly accurate way to describe how Seth explains dream construction. He says, the washing machine was a visual distortion of the idea of a ship, and from tub, he leaped to washing machine. It's an association game. It's symbolic shorthand.
But why was D Masters there? She's the modern friend. Did she travel back in time to fix the washing machine?
This connects the dots even further. Seth mentions that D Masters was also present in that past life. She was a part of that group. So the dream logic saw the entity of D Masters, recognized her from the boat trip, but pasted her current face onto the scene, because that's the face Jane knows now.
It's a collage. It's a multimedia collage of past trauma and present imagery.
Exactly. And again, the purpose was reassurance. Seth says the leaking machine referred to a time when a leakage was discovered on the ship, but they survived it. They made it to Boston.
So, once again, you were on a sinking boat, but you didn't sink. You're safe. The message is always the same.
Always. And there's one more layer of symbolism Seth mentions that ties this all together with the season. Remember, this session is in September. Autumn is coming.
The approach of winter. The dying of the light.
Seth points out that to the psyche, especially a psyche that is already anxious, the approach of winter symbolizes death, the dying of the year.
Oh, wow. So Jane's body feels the cold coming, feels the death of the year, feels the pain in her body, and the subconscious goes into overdrive to prove that death isn't real.
Seth says Rupert was psychically anticipating winter with its symbolism. The dream said that Rupert died once and yet lived again, and that as you survived a leaky old ship at one occasion, so would the basic selves always survive.
That is incredibly touching, actually. It makes the subconscious sound like this very protective, slightly confused guardian angel. It's trying so hard to make you feel safe, even if it has to use cancer scares and leaky appliances to do it.
It creates a mental enclosure of safety. It builds a reality, a dream reality, specifically designed to process the fear so the ego doesn't have to break down.
So, bringing this all together, we have these two huge concepts. On one hand, we have the physics, the mental enclosures where atoms pause and pulse to create matter. On the other hand, we have the psychology, the subconscious creating dream scenarios to process trauma. Are they related? How do they connect?
I think they're deeply related. Both are acts of construction.
Both are constructions.
Exactly. Both are camouflages created by the inner self. The physical chair you're sitting in is a construction of energy, paused and patterned by mental enzymes. The dream you had about the washing machine is a construction of psychic data, patterned by symbols. Neither is fake. Both are real experiences, but they're created for a purpose.
And the purpose seems to be...
It's experience.
And safety.
Growth. And comprehension. Remember that capsule comprehension. The energy knows what it's doing. The subconscious knows what it's doing. Even when we, the conscious ego, are freaking out, there is a deeper part of us that has the blueprint, that knows the chip will make it to Boston, that knows the winter will turn to spring.
It's a call to trust ourselves a little more, isn't it? To trust that the weirdness of our minds might actually be wisdom in disguise.
I think so. Seth advises Rob in this session to keep track of his dreams. He says, you will find that an analysis of your dreams will further your inner development. It's not just random firing of neurons, it's a dialogue with your own history.
So next time you dream about a toaster attacking you or a car that turns into a banana, don't just brush it off.
Ask yourself, what is this protecting me from? What memory is this disguising? What's the pun? There's always a pun.
And maybe, just maybe, it's a message from a version of you that lived 200 years ago saying, hey, we got this. We've been here before.
A comforting thought.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over in your own mental enclosure. If our subconscious is willing to edit our dreams, to turn a 19th century ship into a washing machine, just to protect our ego from shock, what else is it editing?
That is the question, isn't it?
What facts about your daily life, the things you see with your eyes wide open, are actually just protective camouflages? Are we seeing the world as it is? Or are we seeing the version of the world that keeps us sane?
If we might all be living in a very convincing, very personal mental enclosure.
If that doesn't keep you up tonight, I don't know what will. If you want to dive deeper into this rabbit hole, and believe me, it goes much, much deeper, you need to go to the source.
Go study the Seth material books. This is just one session, session 87. There are hundreds more, full of gems like this.
You can find them and support the preservation of this work by visiting the New Awareness Network website and bookstore at sethcenter.com. Specifically, you want to look for the early sessions. That's where this gold is.
sethcenter.com/early sessions. It's worth the trip.
Thank you for joining us in the deep end today. Keep your mental enzymes active, watch out for leaky washing machines, and we'll see you in the next reality.
Good night.
Or good morning,
Damn you.
depending on which pulse of the universe you're in.